Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video, and we've got it, the biggest class balance update so far throughout Dragonflight. Now, of course, balancing has been a tough issue in any game, but in Dragonflight, across multiple spans of content, raids, dungeons, PvP, arenas, battlegrounds, you've got so many different wild, varying spectrums of the game where one class is exceedingly well in one aspect, but then worse in another, and how to deal with those balancing changes effectively so that they're not disrupting another aspect of the game. And in today's update, we're going to be looking at, has that been done? Because, man, like, I was actually blown away with the amount of changes we've got here. We've got PvE specific, Dungeon Mythic Plus, and PvP as well to cover towards the end. So straight off the bat here, we've got Balanced Druid fixing an issue with Cosmic Rapidity so that it's going to be interacting with Stellar Flare and the rate of their dots ticking. Lunar Eclipse is getting nerfed. Moonkin players, we feel bad here. Mind you, in PvP, this was not going to be a big deal. Your AoE Starfire damage was pretty much irrelevant. So, like, it's basically only PvE, which is a big deal. Although you're probably still going to be doing exceedingly high damage there. For Resto, Druid, Verdancy healing has been increased by 10%. Adaptive Swarm is now increasing the effectiveness of your HOTS only by 20%. So 5% bonus healing nerf onto your HOTS. So might seem minor, but it could be big, especially considering Adaptive Swarm's direct healing and damage is also being reduced by 10%. Dream State is now, however, going to reduce the cooldown of your abilities by 20 seconds, up from 15. So this is going to give you a really big cooldown reduction bump when it comes to PvP. These were nerfs that were aimed at trying to make Resto Druids less powerful in Mythic Plus content without affecting them in Raid. And I mean, bringing Resto Druid a little bit down in PvP as well, probably not the end of the world, but also bringing them possibly up. This talent's a lot more desirable as opposed to the lower cooldown on Tranquility. Fire Mage, you're just getting a 5% buff. Frost Mage, just getting a 5% buff. Not surprising to see, just overall buffs towards those classes. We'll have to see what else is done to those specs to PvP specifically later on. For Mistweaver, Lesson of Despair now increases the critical strike chance while above 50% health, was 80%. This is an adjustment to the 10.0.5 PTR values for this ability. For Paladin, we've got Barrier of Faith now accumulates 50% of the effective healing of Flashlight and Holy Light, up from 40. And Paladin, when it comes to PvP, is becoming more and more prevalent, so any buffs towards you here are going to be really well received. Now, Discipline Priest. This could be the scariest healer for the patch, given the other changes that are being made to it on top of, look at this, 25% more healing on Flash healing, 25% more healing on Renew. We've got Powered Radiance increased healing by 100%. Ultimate Radiance increases the healing done by Powered Radiance only by 10%, down from 100, so just flatline increasing the baseline and then making the talents more varied, it seems. Sins of the Many increases your damage dealt by 40% at its highest effectiveness, up from 30. And Divine Aegis is going to create a protective shield now only for 3 to 6 of your critical healing, down from 5 to 10. So slight nerf there. These changes are aimed at improving the spec's ability to react to burst damage, especially in dungeons. At the same time, we're tuning down a talent that's contributing more than intended to Discipline's overall healing. Between these tuning changes and talent changes in 10.0.5, we expect Discipline Priest to be slightly more effective in raids and significantly more in dungeons. Definitely significantly more in PvP. Didn't even mention it with this, but definitely more significant in PvP. For Outlaw, you're seeing a stamina nerf. Not really surprising. This is aimed at survivability in Outlaw Rogues in dungeons to try and make it less of an obvious lock-in pick. Killing Spree, damage reduction value has been reduced from 65% to 35% rather than being like a complete shield wall effect during Killing Spree, only going to be 35%. So survivability aimed nerfs here towards Outlaw. For Resto Shaman, oh my goodness, man. 15% increased healing surge. This is all spec of Shaman. Enhanced, dude. Oh my god, enhanced healing just got even better. It's not really what you needed, but whew. Mana Spring is now going to restore 400 mana. If you never oomed as a Shaman, you're really never going to oom as a Shaman. This is definitely aimed at PvE and trying to get some mana utility for the raid and stuff like that, but you wouldn't take this in PvP even with this buff, I don't think. Totemic Surge reduces the cooldown of totems by 3 to 6 seconds, up from 2 to 4. So a lot more readily access healing stream totems. Man, Resto Shaman, dude. Elemental Shaman, Flame Shock damage has been buffed by 10%. I can't believe they are buffing this. Chain Lightning damage increased by 10%. Lava Beam damage increased by 10%. Earthquake by 10%. So pretty much only the Flame Shock really relevant, at least for PvP. Resto Shaman's Healing Wave 6%. Acid Rain damage by 120%. You really gonna make this a viable option to drop some acid rain down on the Spear of Bastion, maybe, and AoE some people? I don't know. Maybe it's possible. Flame Shock damage has been increased for Resto, and Lava Burst for Resto. You get more damage outside of that Stormkeeper hit. Master of the Elements is also now going to increase the effectiveness of your Shaman's next nature, physical, or frost spell by 20% up from 10. That could be really big with the Lava Burst buffs as well as the Lightning Bolt from your Stormkeeper. So a lot of damage buff changes to try and get some reactionary healing and damage out in Mythic Plus, but will have big effects on PvP. At least in arena. This is kind of like dungeons and raids are the same thing as arenas versus raids. Like dungeons and arena balance will be very similar. For Affliction, Harvester of Souls damage is getting buffed by 25%. Tough for me to say how big of an impact that's going to have on PvP. Demonology, Reign of Tyranny causes Demonic Tyrant to deal 7% additional damage for each stack of Demonic Servitude active at the time of his summon, up from 5%. So getting a little bit more damage into Demonic Tyrant. Seems like they are trying to shift it overall, at least when it comes to PvP, more into the Tyrant window and less outside of it. Arms Warrior, they're buffing Thunderclap damage. I really, as a Warrior player, I don't want to have Thunderclap even keybound as an Arms Warrior, so I'm honestly kind of upset at this thing getting buffed. Cleave is getting buffed. Whirlwind is getting buffed. Bladestorm's getting buffed, really focusing on the AoE. Rend initial damage only, not the dot being increased by 15%. Unfortunate, because I actually would really like to see a bleed build for arms be more relevant, but I think they're worried about Skull Splitter and things like that. So a little bit of an AoE buff here for Arms Warrior. Fury, 10% Raging Blow damage, 15% Execute, 10% Rampage, Annihilator 15%, Bloodthirst 10%, Bloodbath damage 5%. Fury is getting a big buff here. Is it going to be enough? I think the Slaughterhouse nerf is still kind of taking you out of commission, but it's definitely some juicy stuff, definitely worth looking at for some possibilities here. For Prot, we're seeing Brace of Impact now increase your block value by 3, so it looks like Prot Warrior nerfs specifically, as it's definitely, you know, dominating in the PvE field at the moment. So seeing some nerfs there, I think, is going to be expected. Now, PvP, this is where the landscape of the game can be changed entirely right here with these changes that they're making. This most recent tournament has shown that at full power, the classes do a lot of damage. The games are really fast. So this first change here seems to be aimed at that directly. The trinket bonus, so wearing 2 PvP trinkets, is now not going to provide as much of a primary stat increase. It's being decreased by 40%. That is a huge reduction in its primary stat value. Like, that's like 50% less damage, 40% less damage. Like, that is massive. And at the same time, increasing the stamina. So this could be really bad. Again, think about percentage-based healing effects, increasing stamina, scaling those effects, and damage going down at the same time. I'm worried that this might be too much of a knee-jerk reaction to burst damage, especially given that we haven't had any time for players to adjust to 4-piece bonuses and stuff like that, because it's usually the case, like, oh, new gear, new power comes in, it's a little bit uneasy, and then it gets more and more so. Obviously, there's a bunch of one-shots that I would like to be looked at, and this addresses them, but maybe not in the best way. So this is like my biggest worry, that like maybe this saves the game, maybe it ruins it. This type of change, I think, has that type of implication. So I'm really worried about this. For Death Knight, Death Strike healing is no longer reduced in PvP combat. You're getting your Death Strike healing back here, and but improved Death Strike effectiveness is still going to be reduced by 50%. Enfeeble's enemy damage reduction against the Death Knight is now reduced by 33% in PvP combat, so not a lot less static defense. I love this, targeting the spell warding effect and giving you your Death Strike healing back, I think, is what players really wanted. That way the Death Knight needs to be aware of when they're healing themselves, not relying on RNG, and also enemies attacking the Death Knight, you know, like, oh, he proc spell ward and I can't take him out now. Or if you kite him effectively or disarm him and stop a Death Strike and time your abilities, there's a lot more interaction with those abilities. Also, the casting speed reduction is now reduced by 33%. I don't know if that's enough. Honestly, would have almost rather seen the casting speed reduction removed entirely and more Death Strike healing, but this is definitely the right direction for Death Knight. Necrotic Wound from Necrotic Wounds now absorbs 4% of healing down from 5% and heals the Death Knight for 4% of their health down from 5%, so very minor nerf. Virulent Plague no longer deals increased damage in PvP combat. It was increased by 30%. The Death Knight survivability continues to be higher than we are comfortable with, especially against casters, so we're targeting passive parts of their defensive kit while adjusting Death Strike's healing up as a more proactive survivability tool. Additionally, Unholy Death Knights are dealing too much overall damage, so we're adjusting Virulent Plague. Again, with this stat nerf, with these targeted nerfs, I think it might be a little bit overkill, although this is the right direction. I'm a bit worried it's a bit overkill. For Feral Druid, we're seeing an 18% damage reduction in Rake, 18% damage reduction in Rip. Goodbye, Ferals. Rip Feral Druids. Ironically. Ferocious Bite damage also going to be reduced additional 5% to 25% in PvP. So just outright damage nerfs to Feral. And Boomkin. Okay. This is a moment of truth for me, guys, man. I've been struggling here. I've been struggling, man. We've been struggling. It's been hard, man. It's been hard. What's gonna happen here? Orbit Breaker is gonna reset. Oh no, they knew about this. Where you're shooting star stacks from the previous round would stay to the next round, so you get like a full moon instantly. They knew. All right, that's a nerf. Honestly, that is a nerf. Full moon damage reduced to 60% from 80% when triggered by. They're nerfing my Orbit Breaker. It's the only thing that lets me kill people, man. It's the only thing that lets me kill people. They're nerfing the only thing that lets me kill people. You better compensate me. 50% wrath damage. What else are you doing? This doesn't. You got to be doing something else. That's not 50% Starfire damage. Is it enough? I don't know. 20% more Star Surge damage. Sorry, it's only 30% more Starfire damage and 20% more Star Surge damage. Star Surge is one of the lowest hitting abilities it's supposed to hit hard in the game, like 70k top end, and other abilities, hardest hitting abilities are like 180, 200k. So, it's nice, but what else is going to happen? New Moon, Half Moon, and Full Moon are going to deal more damage in PvP. You got to remove the Astral School of Magic on Full Moon. I actually want to play Full Moon instead of Fury of Elune. I can't because if I cast it, I'm kicked on every School of Magic. This is the same problem that it had in Legion. And in Legion, they made a PvP-specific change to make Full Moon arcane. So you could cast Full Moon, get kicked, and still do other things. I would rather just be able to cast it and not be kicked on my entire School of Magic, which is more dangerous than me trying to squeak out a really big hitting spell. So I would have rather seen that. They're nerfing stuff. I knew it. Gathering star stuff, 2-piece bonus is only going to grant 15% increased damage to Wrath or Starfire per stack, down from 20. So obviously there's some problems here with the set bonus stacking up with the baseline increase of damage. That those modifiers together, you'd probably get some really massive Starfires and Wraths. So I mean, I can see that. I respect that change. I think it's better to even out their damage outside of those burst windows specifically. Again, I just don't know if that's enough, but this is the right direction. Touch of the Cosmos, Balanced Druid 4-piece bonus grants 20% increased damage to Star Surge down from 35, so also nerfing the Star Surge modifier stackers. They're worried about this first Star Surge. The main thing is that this first Star Surge is not scary because you haven't stacked up your Shattering Star. You have to channel multiple Star Surges in a row to get bonus damage to your Star Surge, so it's going to be your first Star Surge when you enter Eclipse that gets buffed and doesn't have those stacks, so it's not... I don't think you'd even be able to hit that hard with it anyways. And this is pretty big to its overall burst nerf. And then Umbral Embrace is now only going to increase Wrath or Starfire damage by 40% down from 50% in PvP. So this is all kind of like evening out a bit. It's like, it feels like an attempt to even our damage outside of these specific windows and make Wrath and Starfire more rewarding to cast. When you get trained every game and die, I don't think you're really going to be able to have a lot of time to press these abilities. So, and nerfing this Full Moon proc, which was pretty much the only window that you killed people, on top of increasing stamina, I don't know if it's gonna... I have to play it to know 100%, but I don't think this really does anything. Overall, while it is the right direction, I don't think it's really going to do anything. Feral Druid, Feral Frenzy, also getting a 10% nerf. Frenzied Regen healing reduced by 50% in PvP combat for Feral and Resto only. Interesting that they're targeting Feral and Resto only. That is a big one. Like Resto Druids are gonna that's a big one for attacking those targets. They talk about the Frenzy Regen for Resto here. I don't think it's a double nerf. Budding Leaves is now 50% effective in PvP combat, was 70%. Developers notes Feral damage has been much higher than we're comfortable with, so we're lowering it. Additionally, both Feral and Resto have been too survivable when targeted, so we're lowering the healing from Frenzied Regen for both of the specs. Balanced Druid single target pressure is behind other casters. We like to reward them for using cast time spells like Wrath and Starfire a little bit more, while at the same time fixing some issues that caused Orbit Breaker to do more damage than intended. The procking earlier in rounds makes a lot of sense, but nerfing its actual proc damage is really bad with the way the game is played at the moment. Let's see for Devastation Evoker what's going on here. Deep Breath is going to deal 20% increased damage to PvP down, so 20% nerf to Deep Breath. Spellweaver's Dominance is only going to grant 20% increased critical strike damage down from 30. This is big. Disintegrate is now going to deal 20% increased damage up from 15. And Azure Strike is going to deal 20% more increased damage. So taking the damage out of the Deep Breath burst window that's wombo comboing people and trying to get it outside of that window, which has been the attempted direction throughout all of these ongoing changes, but it still keeps creeping back as being the only point of being able to create pressure. So wait and see. I don't know if these numbers are really big enough to accomplish that goal, unfortunately. For preservation, Dream Projection's heal over time effect can now be dispelled. That makes a lot more sense. And it's going to cost you some mana to go for this really powerful AoE dispelling effect. Honestly, I think there's way too many AoE dispelling effects in the game, although it is a cool one. You know, you fly time and get a CC. I'd like to maybe see it as dispels crowd control as opposed to dots, because damage over time effects just get completely destroyed by so many mechanics. For Hunter, Roar of the Sacrifice PvP talent now deals 10% of the damage the target suffers to the pet, so lowering the redirected damage is definitely something that Hunters needed. Your pets were just accidentally dying. They're nerfing Arcane Execute. So Arcane Bombardment is now 40% effective in PvP, down from 65%. So that Execute range burst is going to be getting nerfed. That's a pretty big one for Arcane. Is it enough, though? 25%? Pretty big. I feel like that's going to be a big change there. For Mistweaver, your mana regen is 10% decrease in PvP, so a slight 5% buff. Enveloping Mist is going to heal 25% more, but they reverted a previous change. It's now going to reduce the cooldown of the Life Cocoon by 45 seconds. In recent change, we readjusted Mistweaver mana regeneration. The result was more than we would like, so we're adjusting it back a bit. Enveloping Mist healing was reduced for PvE purposes at the start of Dragonflight, so we're increasing its healing to match its previous levels in PvP. So little buffs for Mistweaver. I don't really know if it's going to be enough for you, honestly. I feel like you need like a few more tools in your toolkit as a healer to be more competitive right now. Making your fist weaving healing more smart, so it doesn't heal a full HP target as opposed to a lower health target, would also be good. Now Paladin, Divine Protection is gonna, oh my god, they're buffing Paladin. There's no way they're buffing Paladin after how good they were looking. Oh god, these changes must have been made before the recent meta swap to Paladin, dude. Oh my goodness, Paladin is going to be crazy. What is this? Your shield wall is 10% stronger. Your flash of light is 15% stronger. To be fair, that's a good, I like that change towards their casted spells. Aura of Reckoning max stacks have been raised to 100 from 50. The Reckoning effect now activates at 100 stacks, so less frequently going to be getting that massive judgment damage. I like that. That's a good direction. Maybe I jumped the gun here. Consecration damage is buffed by 50% in PvP. Nobody wants to press that to do damage, but okay. I'm a bit concerned that maybe you're going to have to press it, but let's continue on. Reckoning PvP talent now increases the damage of your next judgment by 25, down from 100. Ooh, no more big damage judges coming out here. Holy Light now heals for 75% more. Good change, up from 40. And Holy Shock's going to heal for 15% more. Now, doesn't look like they targeted Avenging Crusader, so like this is still a pretty, like, your burst damage went down a little bit, but your healing is insane now. That looks really crazy to me overall. For Ret, it looks like they're targeting Final Reckoning, 20% less damage. Radiant Decree, 33% less damage. The 2-piece bonus is going to increase the damage of Judgment, Blade of Justice, and Wake of Ashes by 10% PvP, down from 15. Crusader Strike is now going to deal 80% increased damage in PvP. So really trying to get the burst damage away from just like accidentally cracking somebody for their entire health bar. Focus more on, can a Ret Paladin maintain uptime while staying alive and getting pressure out? Your Healing Hands is now going to be 70% increase in PvP combat, was 50%. So getting a little bit more healing as a trade-off for the loss of burst. Templar's Verdict is also going to be doing 10% more damage. Final Verdict is going to be doing 10% more damage. And Exorcism is going to be doing 80% more damage. Curious to see if that makes any play. And Lawbringer is now going to deal up to 8% of the enemy's health, down from 10%. So Aura of Reckoning overall getting some nerfs here. Less frequency makes a lot of sense. Ret Paladin main direct damage burst spells that are causing people to skyrocket in rating and one-shot people getting nerfed, and some of their more sustained damage oriented abilities getting buffed. Again, good directions overall. These have big implications in the burst damage, again, with the stamina getting buffed and the intellect on top of this. Bit worried about how games are going to end with the speed of the game as a result. But now we've got Shaman. Earth Unleashed from Unleashed Shield now breaks on damage and lasts 2 seconds. That's a big nerf. This is a huge thing for Shaman to get healing reduction on targets by rooting them. So the fact that it's going to break and doesn't last as long is a really big deal. Healing Stream Totem is increased by 30% in PvP. It was 30%, 38%. I think this is in a reaction to the PvE buffs, but honestly, not too many nerfs. Like, we read a lot of PvE buffs to Resto Shaman. They're not nerfing a lot in response to that. Water Shield is now going to return 1% of mana when struck, down from 2%. This is, again, Resto Shaman mana needs to be addressed. I don't think you should never Stormkeeper's damage is now 67% effective in PvP. So big nerf for Resto Shaman burst damage, but remember, your Lava Burst got buffed, so maybe fishing for Lava Burst. Riptide healing has also been nerfed. I think this is good. Only using Riptide and Healing Stream is going to be rough. They buffed their casted spells, although if you get tunneled, it could be really tough to survive. So tough to say where Resto Shaman ends on this, if it's overall weaker or stronger, because these mechanics were really making you strong. So nerfing those this much, might end up making you in a worse spot. Elemental Shamans, we're seeing Dragonflight Season 1 and 2 piece bonus being a 50% reduced effectiveness in PvP combat. Oh my goodness. And Primordial Surge's Lava Burst damage increases now 60% effective in PvP combat. Big overall nerfs to damage from Ellie. This is what I'm saying. Targeting those burst damage spells, great. But increasing the stamina pool at the same time probably means games are going to be going into dampening. A bit worried about the game slowing down quite a lot as a result of this. Surprising to not see any assassination rogues specifically targeted here. For Warrior, we got Thunderous Roar talent. Bleeding damage no longer deals reduced damage. Okay, so getting some bleed builds here for Warrior. I do like that. Uproar talent no longer has a reduced cooldown effectiveness in PvP. Was 50% reduced. For Fury, Slaughterhouse is going to last a little bit longer. And all those buffs you got. It's going to last a little bit longer. But it still doesn't refresh. Yeah. Storm of Steel talent no longer has a reduced damage effect in PvP. Was 50% reduced. Developer knows Fury Warriors have fallen behind other melee specializations, so we're increasing the duration of Slaughterhouse to allow access to max effectiveness of their healing reduction more often. So again, targeting it in the right way. Then again, all those damage buffs on top of hitting that peak moment. It might work out for you. It seems like the biggest hit ones were Ellie and Rhett. You got... Ellie and Rhett got hit really hard. Feral as well got hit pretty hard. Arcane a little bit. Not sure this Boomkin change really does anything, just because the spells that are getting buffed don't really do very much, and they're nerfing pretty heavily the abilities that allow you to end the game at the moment. This change right here, I think, is the biggest one. Just stats increased, stats decreased, and stamina increased. Disc Priest looks really good right now based on these patch changes. Definitely worth checking out. Other than that, I hope that you enjoyed this patch session and checking out the changes moving forward. If you did, hit the subscribe button, comment down below, and like the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.